Hi there, I'm Miranda Alt with Keller Williams Success Realty, and this is Wisdom Wednesday. Today, I am talking with Chris Christensen from Neis Insurance. He is going to share with us a little bit about what's going on in the insurance industry. A lot of people don't think about their home insurance or their car insurance very often, but it is something that is relevant to everyone who's a homeowner, even renters with renters policies. And Chris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. I've always enjoyed your Wisdom Wednesday. So for me to be on this is actually a big thrill for me. So thank you very much.
Yeah. I'm so glad. Well, good. Well, Chris, you and I talked a little bit of this morning, and we were just talking about the different things that people might not know about homeowners insurance. And sure. I know when I'm selling a home, people always have to get insurance if they are going to have a mortgage. That's required. And most people want to have home insurance anyway. But a lot of people will go they'll just say, oh, I'm going to just go on geico.com or, something like that. So can you talk a little bit about what things people might not know about the insurance industry?
Sure. Thank you again. Thank you for having me. Homeowners insurance right now is probably the most complicated it's been since I've been at it for 20 years this November. Inflation, obviously being the highest it's been since 1984. I was 9 years old back when inflation was this high. So people are buying homes now, and they do go online and they automatically look for the most cost-effective approach, which it does make sense. Obviously, price is a big factor in everything we do, but not all homeowners insurance is built the same. And so what's going on right now is there's a big difference between maybe market value versus replacement cost. And so in the last couple of years, what I've seen is up until maybe last year, the going per square foot for a new home was $150 a square foot for insurance. Now that same home is about $200 a square foot. And so we see when people are coming to us or either shopping for new insurance or buying a new home, the policies they've had before, the home is often drastically underinsured. And so
that's due to the cost of building supplies. So if people don't know what that means. So when I'm selling a home, the actual average cost of purchasing a home in Crystal Lake per square foot is about $196 per square foot right now.
Sure.
But that might not replace. So that might be a home that's built with nicer finishes than a home, and it might cost $250 per square foot is what you're saying.
Yeah, very well could. And so anytime you have an insurance claim versus a regular claim, oftentimes insurance gets to be a little bit more expensive. And then you never know what insurance claim is going to happen. So if you have a single fire, that's one replacement cost. But what often happens if you have a tornado, which we do live in the Midwest, and let's say 50 or 60 homes are damaged, well, then you have an artificial bubble built in that area. And so then you're going to watch prices even go up even higher. But even now, if you look at I know gas prices are falling now, but shingles are made out of oil, so obviously the shingles, maybe a roof cost $25,000 a year ago to replace. Now we're seeing upwards of $35,000 to $40,000 to increase. And you also can't get a contractor out there. So all of these claims are definitely going up. And I think that's the one thing, if I could ever tell a homeowner, is yes, price is important. Nobody's naive to that, but you really need to talk to your insurance agent and ask them, what actually am I buying? Do I have replacement costs? Do I have extended replacement costs? And do I have guaranteed replacement costs? And that was one thing I often see when we were talking earlier. I'll find a house where it's, they're insured at the bare minimum, $300,000. And if anything goes wrong, I don't know what's going to happen to that family. So what we try to do is we try to counsel them and go, at least get extended replacement costs. That gives you a 25% over the top. So using a house in Crystal Lake average $450,000, you have extended replacement costs. That gives you another 25% over the top. So you're insured roughly almost at $600,000 and just below, like $584,000.
So that if something happened to your home, you could actually rebuild it and
you can rebuild it and go in, but you have enough cushion built in where you go. Or the best policy to get is a guaranteed replacement cost. So that means if you have a $450,000 home and you've done a bunch of upgrades and now it costs $700,000 to insure, you have no worries about getting your house insured or rebuilt.
Rebuilt, $700,000 to rebuild it. You're still covered.
Still covered.
And the other thing we talked about was the contents of your home. A lot of people assume that all of their contents are.
That's another one. So we'll get that where you'll talk to them and be like, well, I have a $20,000 engagement ring. but I don't have this much personal property, so it must be covered. It just isn't. You have to schedule that. The other thing when people are buying homes or just living in their home, they automatically think all water is covered, and it's not. If you're near if you live near the river or near Crystal Lake, maybe you need a flood policy if it's going to come up. Or the other one would be water backup of sewer and drain. That's a big claim in our area, because in McHenry County is a lot of farm fields, a lot of low-lying areas.
Yep.
Then we've got some rolling hills. And the amount of customers that I've had that thought they had water backup that come to me after a claim because they're mad, they bought the policy online, or they bought it quickly and they've never gone back and reviewed it. And since that time, they've finished their basement. And
Yep.
so now they have no water backup, and they have a $10,000 loss, and it just comes out of their savings account. Now that doesn't happen at our agency, luckily, because we try to meet with every one of our clients and go over
Yeah.
coverages, but it does happen a lot.
It happened to my husband on one of our rental properties. He just assumed that he had sewer
Sure.
backup, and he did not. And the sewer backed up, and he just had to pay to get it fixed, which was terrible.
What I usually recommend
money.
for someone buying a new home is it's always easier to add water backup and then take it off.
Yeah.
That's usually my one thing I tell everybody. Put it on, once you learn to talk to your neighbors, once you look at your sub pump and it never runs, if you want to take it off, go ahead. But what most people don't realize is most carriers either have a 7 or a 30-day wait to add water backup. So if you do move into that new home and all of a sudden your sub pump's running all the time, and you watch, WGN and Thomas Gilling says it's going to rain, then you get nervous about it. We can't automatically add it on. It takes 7 days before it goes on. Insurance companies kind of realize what's going on. So
Right.
they don't want to add it on until after
Right.
the rain is over.
Another thing that we talked about was like if you have to be displaced from your home. That was
Sure.
another thing that you brought up that I had not even thought
Yeah.
of.
So on every policy, there's considered loss of use. And a lot of people choose the 12-month loss of use. We always sell 24 months. Right now, if you were to suffer a fire, a big catastrophic fire, I don't think you could have your house rebuilt in a year. At least all the builders I talk to cannot build a house in a year. There's just not enough.
Not only that, it's just the supply chain issues
Yeah.
too. You can't even, garage
Sure.
doors, you're waiting a year.
Yeah. So that's another one where you really have to make sure of what loss of use you have. The other one we get into would be with hailstorm. A lot of carriers, there's different levels of how that's covered. I always recommend you take a roof or siding restoration endorsement. What that means would be line of sight. So if you have hail damage on the front of the house, but it really didn't damage the back, a lot of carriers will not match that siding, and customers get very upset by that. So I always add siding and roof restoration. You need to talk to your agent about what happens to the on-damaged siding. Are you guys going to fix both? Are you going to match it? No one likes a striped house. No one likes a house that's beige, brand new siding on the front and old beige on the back. It's customers.
It's like those cars that you see driving around with like one panel of the car that's a different color.
But that's where not every policy is built the same. And as much as I love talking about insurance, I do realize that it can be a very boring subject until you have a claim. But that is something where you really need to sit down and go, okay, I know I can get a policy at $800 and the other guy is $1,400. What's the difference? And you really need to start investigating, why the differences are in there. Maybe sometimes it could just be overpriced, but a lot of times the other policy is just a plain Jane policy and there's nothing in there.
And we talked about earlier, it's fine until it's not fine.
It's
fine
fine
insurance. Yeah.
And everybody has a different level of what risk they have. I have a very high deductible on my home. I think that's always the better way to go. But some other people want a very low deductible. You just need to understand again what policy you have, what your coverage is, and how it goes into it. A lot of people don't realize that the new going thing now, obviously not growing, but with Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, if you slander someone on Facebook or Instagram or do something like that, that can be covered by your homeowner's insurance if you have personal injury. And I get one claim a year like that, where someone says something and they get sued. And you need to make sure your Facebook, your homeowner's insurance will cover that loss.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It's personal injury is covered on most homeowners policies, but sometimes it's not. And you need to know if it's in there or it's not in there.
Wow. That is,
especially if you have kids, because your kids are covered underneath your homeowner's policy. So you need to make sure if
my kids aren't on social media for that.
Well, your kids aren't, but the other things do happen. So you need to make sure that it's on there. But again, when you go online and they have these tools set up on all these different carriers' websites, you can go build your own policy. But oftentimes when I see those policies come in, I can't compete, not because our policy is not better. It's just, there's just nothing in it. They bought literally the Yugo of homeowners insurance policies, and there's just nothing in there. That to me is, again, everybody wants to save $400. I totally appreciate that. But at the same time, your homes normally are your biggest asset a person has.
Yep.
You probably want to make sure you are covering it correctly.
I always say I have complete compassion with my clients because I know that I buy and sell homes every day, but I know they do not. And for most people, it's the largest transaction they are ever going to be involved in. And it's a big deal. And you want to make sure that it's properly covered. And this goes back to the conversation I was having with Eric Schroeder of Mortgage Capital Group, that not all loans are created the same too. Like he was talking about how, he has to have a really lengthy conversation with people about what's your plan for the next 5 years? And it sounds like it's the same thing with insurance. You can go online and get any old home insurance plan, but it might not be the right fit for what your goals are and what you want to make sure that how you're covered. So that's all really interesting.
That is correct. And a lot of times it's not. Look, there are bad carriers out there. I can't tell you that. I do not think all carriers are built the same, but for the most part, 60% of the complaints I get when people are looking insurance, they're leaving because they're mad about something normally.
Right.
A lot of times, no one sat there and explained to them what they didn't have. And then they had a loss. And if someone who just said, that's not covered, they would probably not have left the other insurance agent, but they either didn't take the time or the other insurance agent didn't take the time to sit there and explain to them what was not covered. And also that's a very costly mistake. If you have a flooded basement and you did not have water backup, you might have your $20,000 in your savings account, but you really want to spend it for a basement that probably could have been covered for $150 a year.
Yep. And what I noticed with my husband is when he first got into his business of, being a property owner, he did not realize some of his properties didn't have replacement costs. They only had they would only get the life of, I don't know what it was.
But they probably, some of the rental properties, sometimes they sell them on actual cash value or agreed value.
That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it was.
Really, I see a lot of homes, again, that's what I was talking about earlier, that they buy a home and they're insuring it on agreed value, which basically means they're depreciating your home because they're going to say, well, your home was built in 1985. And so the life of your vinyl siding or aluminum siding is older. That can be extremely costly at the time of
devastating.
Yeah. That's what we at Neis Insurance. It may be 1% of our value of our book of business is insured on agreed value, and those tend to be very older homes. And like your husband, they might have multiple properties, and they're not looking to rebuild that if something ever happened to that home, and so they're taking advantage of that loss. But the average homeowner in McHenry County, the people you and I are dealing with, they should never have their home insured on agreed value. It should always be at least at extended replacement cost or guaranteed replacement cost. And they do, if anybody listens to this, just go look at your homeowner's policy, call your agent and understand what your coverage A is. Coverage A means that's what your dwelling is insured at, and really understand, look at $200 a square foot and think, okay, if I had a fire, would my house be rebuilt? Or if I had large smoke damage, and is 12 months enough time to be out of my home, or would I have to be out of my house longer?
And you were talking about inflation and how that's going to affect everything too. With inflation, we've got to be watching all these costs too, because if you're only insured to 500,
if you're only insured up to your coverage A amount of like 400,000, you could really be in big trouble. And another one, I had a regular claim earlier in the year where a window leak. It took 6 months to get them windows. 6 months. It wasn't anything because the carrier was bad. It wasn't anything because the person installing the windows was bad. There was just no new windows to put in the house.
Wow.
So, that is a problem where that's where the increasing claim goes. I think most customers now are probably going to be seeing between an 8 and a 14% rate increase on their homeowners insurance in our area in the next year because of the increased cost of claims. You can't find it. I had another customer where, this is a commercial client, a car drove through their lobby of their business. It took us 16 contractors to find someone who wasn't busy to go do that claim. So and there was an added cost to that claim. So that took a claim that was going to be like $30,000 and moved it up to $40,000. That those claims are out there. And so that's where people need to make sure, again, do they have the correct insurance? have they really looked at it? And there's not an insurance agent that's out there that wouldn't be really excited to talk to you about what coverages you have. They do, because not enough people ask. It's in my business, it's become very transactional, which is, again, it's not a bad thing, but it is what it is. But most insurance agents, we're proud of what we do. I really can't think of any really bad insurance agent in McHenry County. There are really a lot of really good insurance agents who would really be happy to sit down with you and make sure that the plan is covered. Because the last thing we want to do, any of us in our industry, is think my customer had a claim and now they're mad because it wasn't covered. I'd rather just tell you up front, hey, do you want this coverage or you do not want this coverage?
Right, right. So the message is to everyone, the takeaway is make sure you look at your homeowner's insurance policy. Yeah. Call your agent, make sure that you've got the things covered, that you're properly insured, and that you've got the coverage that you really want.
I think that's the bottom. That would be what I would take away. And just, again, when you look at your homeowners, and just call up your agent, ask them to go through it. And then, it doesn't harm calling another agent to find out, like, what are they compared to? Just making sure there's always an apples to apples comparison. Right. And then just understand it. It's probably like in your world, do they just do 15 to 20 minutes worth of research? They're going to figure out that Miranda Alt's probably the realtor they should go to, right? Doesn't take,
thanks.
Really, the reputation's out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
If you do 15 or 20 minutes of worth of research, you're going to find what insurance company you should probably be with and what's a really reputable insurance company you want to work with, or an agent. And but that can save you so much time and effort and so much, headache and hassle.
Well, and we're going to put your contact information in the comments here. So if anybody has any questions, Chris, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for having me. Again, it was very exciting being asked. I watch it every Wednesday, and I'm always like, wow, look at Eric Schroeder, comes across like a rock star, but I have to wear a better suit so I look like it.
You got to get the 3-piece suit.
I got to get the 3-piece suit, be a little taller, maybe grow a beard. But thank you very much for asking me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Chris Christensen with Neis Insurance. I will put his contact information in the comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Happy Wednesday, everyone. We'll be back again next week. Have a great day. Bye.